Beginning in 1963, Doctor Who will go on to make history as well as be one of the most consistently entertaining and creative forces in British culture. When it was shut down in the 1980s, it wasn't gone for forever, and eventually, in 2005, it was resurrected with its revival under the leadership of Russell T Davies. The series is still going today, although many would argue not very strongly, but like many other series, especially longer-running television series, it has a consistent tradition of holiday specials around the Christmas time period. For Doctor Who's revival in particular, it's sort of a pre-season treat to sort of show off the possibilities of what the next season has to offer. However, despite having nearly 20 years worth material from its revival, the single best Christmas special isn't one of its dedicated specials, but instead the third episode of the very first season. The Unquiet Dead, written by Mark Gatiss and directed by Euros Lyn, sees the Doctor and his new travel companion, Rose Tyler, in 1869 Cardiff, as they pair up with prominent, although by that point at the tail end of both of his career and life, Charles Dickens, find themselves in the middle of a mystery involving gaseous ghosts from across the galaxy possessing corpses as banshee-like zombies, as well as a wily and desperate mortuary owner and his beleaguered maid, who may or may not have a mysterious connection to the rift in time and space inside of Cardiff that is not only the cause of this potential ill, but also many others. Eventually, it's revealed that the ghosts possessing the bodies are an attempted force of invading aliens fleeing from the consequences of the Time War between the Daleks and the Time Lords themselves, a catastrophe that requires a sacrifice of great personal cost to avert. The Unquiet Dead is one of the best episodes of the Doctor Who revival, mostly in how quietly competent it is in every aspect of its writing, as well as Euros Lyn's exceptionally understated direction, probably the greatest asset to the episode itself. Using wide camera angles and limited location shoots in outdoor areas, the episode manages to be shot in modern Cardiff while looking almost as a picture-perfect facsimile of Victorian-era Wales. All the while, the interior sets, though not particularly flashy or outstanding, are somber and convincing. But really, it's the strengths of Gatiss's surprisingly excellent script, as well as the acting from the overall cast that manages to showcase the most bold and impressive aspects of the episode itself. Gatiss's writing has many ambitious themes and ideas around not just foreshadowing other important events inside of that season, but also the Doctor Who series on the whole. Everything from the bad wolf that would come at the 11th hour at the end of that season to save humankind, but also just the creation of the ever-important world-building detail of the Cardiff Rift, a detail that would not only serve as an important focal point throughout that season, but also other spin-off series of the Doctor Who universe as well. Though by and large, the single most important world-building aspect of the episode is the very first and earliest hints of the after effects of the Time War between the Daleks and the Time Lords, where the antagonists of the episodes are actual victims of that conflict. A conflict that would become so important that questions surrounding it would be prevalent for over a half-decade inside of the series, all throughout Russell T Davies' initial stint as showrunner. However, if I had to say there's any aspect about the writing that I find impressive, it's in elements that aren't, I would argue, frequently common in modern episodes today. Those primarily being the vindication of Rose's humanity, as well as the challenge of the superiority of the Doctor's galactic worldliness. With Rose being a more relatable and empathetic person, as well as less overall knowledgeable on the grand universe, she has to listen to everything with open ears, and in doing so, she's able to open up more easily to the initially unassuming maid Gwyneth, who, while at the beginning of the episode looks to be merely a haggard, if not slightly annoyed tag-along to a series of unfortunate events plaguing her lifelong employer Sneed, she turns out to be the key to the entire mystery itself, having an almost psychic connection to it at birth due to her lifelong proximity to the rift. This connection gives her a unique angle to potentially help, to which the Doctor's more experienced, more open mind automatically assumes that she should. But it's the human trepidation for a statement of a perfect victim that leads to Rose to doubt it, as well as the admonishment of the Doctor for those doubts. Doubts that prove to be vindicated by the end of the episode, when the ultimate ambitions of the Gelth, as well as their plots towards humanity, are fully revealed. It's an episode in which the Doctor is allowed to go on his standard soapbox about the limitations of human mistrust and of its own judge of character, but it has the actual boldness and wit to actually allow him to be wrong, as well as feel the consequences of that. Consequences which he cite and feel even in later other iconic episodes within the same season. It's a remarkably solid piece of writing, and it serves as both a warm and brilliant moment for Rose to shine as one of the more legitimately underrated companion characters he's received, far more so than many other characters that get a lot more prominent praise. However, if there's any characters and performances that stand out, it's not just Christopher Eccleston's superb and underrated version of the Ninth Doctor, nor even Billie Piper's Rose Tyler, but instead the most standout performances in the episode belong to the guest stars, those being the absolutely brilliantly erudite and toffee-nosed Simon Callow as Charles Dickens, and Eve Miles's brilliantly brave, empathetic, if not slightly rustic, Gwyneth. These two characters are the linchpin of the episode, with Charles Dickens not only serving as a strong foundation for the intellectual doubts of the time and even our own era's doubts of paranormal activities and their possible alien roots, but also just a solid character arc of his own as he comes out of his ennui of the later part of his life and gets a new lease on it. The writing itself even manages to account for how ahistoric this is by putting it within the last days of his life. But I think really it's Eve Miles's performance as the maid, Gwyneth, that is easily the strongest part of it. Unassuming, mildly sheepish at the beginning, she begins to become more confident as the episode goes on, volunteering under the Doctor's suggestion to help the Gelth, and then being the one to tell the Doctor, Dickens, and Rose to flee as she destroys the Gelth invasion as well as herself, knowing that there is no way to escape from the ghosts that have haunted her since her childhood. All in all, if you're looking for a great episode of Doctor Who, then might I recommend The Unquiet Dead, from the very first and, in my perspective, finest season of the Doctor Who revival. Merry Christmas and stay golden.
Oh, the weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so delightful.